Welcome to the Practically Imperfect podcast. I'm Lindszie.
I'm Orson.
Orson, how was your week?
That reminded me of John Ralphio from Parks and Rec.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Anyways, to answer your question, yeah, the week was good.
It was really good.
Mm-hmm.
What had happened was...
for some reason, I am completely drawing a blank.
Your family was in town.
That was the weekend.
Yeah?
That's about the entire week.
Okay, well, highlights of your week. Your family was in town from Arizona.
That was the highlight. We got to see my dad and his wife, Candace. We love them both. They were here to see her family, though, so we only got to have dinner with them on Sunday night last week.
Mm-hmm.
And then my oldest sister, Brooke, and her family came to visit us, and more so Scarlett. Came to really more so see Scarlett than us, but I mean, that's okay.
Yeah. So we were hosting dinner for your dad, and the only thing we know how to make is pulled pork sandwiches.
Those are some damn good pulled pork sandwiches.
They are, yes. That's the only thing we know how to make.
Part of the reason, though, is because we use Texas Roadhouse rolls.
Yes.
And that just elevates it to another level.
Yeah, so if you're cooking dinner for your family, make some pulled pork in a crock pot, Instant Pot, whatever you have, with Texas Roadhouse rolls as the buns, and everybody will love you for it. So
they sure will.
Yeah, so that was yummy. And then, yeah, when your sister came, we always do so like fun things. Mm-hmm. Like I was home with the baby, but you did like a super cool ropes course.
Don't make it seem like you're at home. You went to a birthday party.
That's true.
And we wanted you to go. We were we were trying to make it to where Brooke was willing to come back and get you.
Yeah.
So you weren't missing out.
However, well, okay. So I have only done a ropes course on like a cruise ship, so they're for children, but I thoroughly enjoy. I get scared, and Orson usually has to talk me through it, but I always am wanting to do it, and I always think rope courses are fun. Mm-hmm. But you said this one was not for me.
This was like, if any of you have been on a ropes course, like a legitimate ropes course, that's what I would categorize this as.
Yeah.
You can go to places like there's this place in Arizona called the Main Event. Where it's like an arcade, bowling alley, and food, and just all of that fun stuff all in one event center. And they also have like this ropes course that you get strapped into a harness, and then there's this thing that you can't unhook from it at all. It's kind of like a track.
Oh, yes.
This is how the cruise is,
yes.
too. It's like a track above you, and you are always stuck into that. So if you fall or something like that off the obstacle, you don't fall to the ground.
Yeah.
And so this one, or I don't know how, I'm pretty sure pretty much every legitimate one is like this, but you had like this C, they called it a claw, but it's like a shape in a C, and then there's like this slight little opening in this C, and you had to basically use that to maneuver your way around the course, because like there were these metal wires just going back and forth, and that's what would hold you up if you would fall. And but to get from one obstacle to another obstacle, there would be like these flat discs in a sense that would have these little openings for that small C opening to go through, if that makes any sense. And
so were you at one point like completely unhooked?
You were never unhooked.
Oh, okay.
But you had to like maneuver that claw looking thing that was always holding you up around the metal wires, and it got kind of annoying.
Oh.
And it wasn't like, I mean, it was still a cool experience and it was fun, but it was like, bottom line, it was a lot of hard work, and it was like 93 degrees outside. It was hot. So it's 5 stories high. So you do want the obstacles on the first, second, third, and you just work your way up. But it was just right in this middle of the sun.
Oh my gosh.
Not really any shade. So you're hot, exhausted. You're doing these obstacles that are legitimately really hard. And
And then when you came back, you were like, I do not think you could do it because of my height.
Yeah, because sometimes like you're maneuvering this claw thing around these metal wires to get around the course.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to, like the place where you would kind of switch from obstacle to obstacle and maneuvering this little claw thing around, it was like eye level with me. Mm-hmm. And Lindsay's like belly button level with me. I'm just kidding, not that
so
small.
So if you didn't know our heights, I'm 4'11".
And then I'm 6'1".
Yeah.
So there's quite a big difference
very, very short.
Yeah.
So I can't do a lot of things, if I'm being honest. Like, I would love to do rock climbing walls, and I'm sorry, those are not made for short people. They're just not. I cannot... Like I just can't do it. I can't reach. It's not that I'm not strong enough, is my arms and legs just aren't long enough to get to the next little hook. So yeah, unfortunately I can't do those things, but that's okay. I'm glad you had fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm super grateful we had the opportunity to even go. I mean, it's brand new in southern Utah, and it's going to be a lot bigger. Like, they're building a lot. Like, this is just like the first phase.
Oh.
But it's going to be a pretty big thing, and there's a water park right next to it. So they're kind of building this whole spot of land where there's a water park, a ropes course, and a bunch of fun little activities that families can come and just have a good time.
That's fun.
I mean, it's like $40 a person, so it's not like cheap.
No, that's expensive.
But it's fun, and I think it would be more fun too, especially when it gets a little bit more cool, like when it's 70 sweater weather.
Yeah.
Which it's getting close to that.
It's
I hope.
Not. It's actually not, though.
That's why I said I hope. It's getting close to that. I hope.
So we live in St. George, Utah, and the first weekend of October is always a St. George marathon. It's a big thing. People from all around come, and you can qualify for the Boston Marathon with this marathon. I don't know if that's all marathons. I doubt it. Maybe.
I think there's only a select number of races that you can run that will allow you to qualify for it. I don't think any marathon in the United States you can just qualify.
Yeah, probably.
I mean,
I'm
maybe
not exactly
you can.
sure.
I guess I don't really know. But
well, anyway, where was I going with that?
It's just been busy. It's been hot.
Oh yeah. So since we were like out and about with family this weekend, we came across a lot of people just talking about it, people from out of town, and they were saying how this marathon is supposed to be the hottest in such a long time, which I felt so bad for, because usually October, that should be like nice weather for running, but it's been in the mid 90s still. I am over it. Yeah. I just want to wear sweaters.
Yeah.
I mean, I can, but I just sweat, which isn't fun. But anyway, so that was our week. Nothing super crazy, just super fun, chill with family.
Trying to think if there's anything else that happened. I mean, not really. Just work and everything.
Yeah, nothing crazy.
Cool. Well, should we actually get into what you wanted to talk about?
Mm-hmm. So this episode, we're kind of going to go into before we had Scarlett. So I feel like for majority of our marriage before we had her, nothing really crazy was going on like in our lives. So we kind of just were living day to day as normal people do. And I feel like our lives really kind of got going once we were like, okay, when should we have kids? At least from my memory. Like, do you really remember our first, like anything that's super significant happened in our first couple years?
I mean, those first 3 years were just kind of a grind, I feel like.
For you, yeah.
For me, I mean, because I was working what I would call my old dead-end job. Mm-hmm. I was trying to pursue videography and filmmaking full-time. So I was working that job and doing that part-time and just trying to make it work.
Yeah.
Along with being newly married and working out and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it was just the beginning stages of really trying to make something happen.
Yeah.
Because I knew you wanted to have kids, and I've always wanted a family too. And I knew that was coming, but I also knew I wanted to be able to support my family by doing something that I love. Mm-hmm. Because that's one thing that I am really adamant about. And that's ever since in the beginning is I want to show my kids how to live, not tell them. And a big part of that, I feel like, is making sure I have a job that I love and I enjoy. And there's some other lessons and stuff that are related to that, but we don't need to get into that stuff right now. But I feel like, yeah, that first 3 years was just the grind of making sure we had the money and stuff to be able to support a family.
And kudos to us, because we did a good job.
Yeah,
In our first couple years of marriage, like, we both were working full time, and you also had your videography business on the side. And it took, so let's see, we got married in 2019. When did we build and have, when did we have this house? Was it 2021?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was. I think we bought it in 2020, and then we moved in after it was built in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. So that's
2 years. It was 2020 happened.
Yes.
Was it I think October of 2020 is when we moved in with your parents.
Yes. While our house was being built.
And then November is when we put the deposit down on the house.
Mm-hmm.
Or reserved the lot for it to be built.
And then in May it was finished in 2021.
And then they started building in like December or January.
Mm-hmm.
And then that following May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, only 2 years in, we were able to buy a house. Like,
Which
that's
is
amazing.
Insane. Like, I remember when we first saw these houses, we were like, whoa, that would be so cool to be able to live in one of these.
I know. It's
it was
so
like
amazing.
this is our legitimate first dream home.
Oh yeah.
That was
and if you look at this house, you would probably laugh in our face, because it's nothing special by any means.
Anyone would laugh in our face. It's a beautiful. It's got 4 bedrooms. It's almost 2,000 square feet. Like it's way too big for what we need.
Yeah.
For just the 3 of us, but it's something that we can grow into.
Yeah, we saw these houses and we wanted them so bad. And mind you, this was back in 2020, 2021. We could not afford our house by any stretch of the matter right now. Because of how expensive everything has gotten, and interest rates. We also got an amazing low interest rate. But anyway, so yeah, once we had this house, I was like, okay, because our first year of marriage, we were living in a 1-bedroom basement apartment, so we couldn't really, well, we could have had a baby anywhere we lived, of course, but it's not ideal. So we didn't want to start having kids when we were living in our basement apartment. And then right after that, we moved in with my parents to save some money to buy this house. And that wouldn't have been good either, because we were just having a room. We had to share a bathroom with my siblings who still live there. So that wasn't ideal either. So once we officially moved into this 4-bedroom house with just the 2 of us, I was like, all right, our 2-year anniversary is coming up. Let's make some babies. That's where I was at. And so when we first got married, or when we were dating and engaged, we both agreed that we wanted to be married for at least 2 years before we start trying to have kids.
We got married when we were 20.
Yes.
So we were thinking about having kids when we were 22.
Yep. You know, it's so funny too.
Like, just put that into perspective for a second.
Why? What's wrong with that?
Because that is still freaking young. And in my opinion, it's just like that's dumb. But
okay. You want to expand?
I was like 22 years old, thinking about let's start a family. And I get
so many people do it, babe,
I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's just like life. There's so much life to be lived, and I think I'm so grateful for having Scarlett, and I would never change it in a million years. And it's just like, when I think about our kids, like, I'm going to encourage them to go live life a little bit before committing to a child. Like, there's so many beautiful things that they can go experience by themselves with their partner before they have a child. Because, I mean, having a child, it really locks you down, and it restricts
really
a lot of the activities that you can do and experiences you can have.
And that's why we said at least 2 years.
And we did a lot of fun things in those 2 years.
Oh yeah, we did so much, in my opinion. So, okay, where was I going with that? Okay, what I was gonna say is, what's funny is when I was like in high school, I always said I want to be married at 20 and have a baby, and be pregnant by 22. I always said that. So, and also, I wouldn't consider myself type A. Do you know what that means when I say
Well,
like
for
a type
those that
A?
don't, explain it.
So type A, I mean, I don't actually really know what it means, but in my brain, when I think of a type A person, it's very organized, very structured, very want to be in control. Also, like perfectionist, which I don't subscribe to being a perfectionist at all. I literally could care less about lots of things where some people have to be perfect in every way, but that's not me. Hello, this is the Practically Imperfect podcast. Like, so I subscribe to the type A as far as like structured, organized, and controlling as well.
Okay.
That's what I kind of subscribe to. So I think that's kind of what type A means. And what's unfortunate and really sad is when I was 22, and also my birthday and then my anniversary are 10 days apart. So I turned 22, and then that next week it was our 2-year anniversary, and I was ready to get pregnant because that's kind of what I said that I wanted not my entire life, when I was in high school, and what I wanted for my life. And spoiler alert, Orson was like, no. I don't want to yet. That kind of like, it sounds so dumb saying it out loud, but it kind of like rocked my world. I was like, wait, what? This is what we always said we were going to do. We are financially stable. We have this amazing house that we're ready to grow into. We've gone on multiple cruises. We've gone to Disneyland a bunch of times. We didn't go to New York yet. That wasn't there yet.
It was almost.
No, we went to New York in 2022 of the next year. So we weren't even doing that yet.
Oh.
So
We had just built a house.
yeah, but I had felt like we had done a good amount together. Like I mean, obviously that's not the most anybody could have done, but I feel like I was good. We had lived a pretty dang good life before, and I was ready to kind of have things change a bit. And you were not. And that was really hard.
Yeah, from my perspective, I was like, things can change a lot without a kid still. There's still a lot more life to live. In my head, I was thinking, we're only 21, 22. Mm-hmm. Like, what rush is there? Let's slow down a little bit. Let's just have fun. Let's like keep doing what we're doing. Like, I was enjoying life the way that it was. Like, we were still growing, and things were happening that were good. And in my head, I was just thinking like, oh man, having a kid, like that's huge. Like, getting married is a huge deal and a huge decision, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. But having a kid, to me, is on another level because, in my opinion, you should be married and have kids, and that's the life that I subscribe to, is to have a family and be married and do all that traditional stuff. And so I was just like, but doing that is going to make it much, like, I'm going to have to commit even more. There's another level beyond just being married. Oh,
yeah. Like, people say getting married is a big deal, and it very much is, especially, like, legally getting divorced, I'm sure, is really hard, and especially if there's money involved and businesses, like, you have to split things. Like, getting married is for sure a big deal. But if you get married and you don't have kids and it doesn't work out, you can divorce and literally never have to talk to that person ever again. Yeah. But if you have a child with that person, even if you aren't married and you just have a baby, you are stuck with that person. Not with romantically, but you are connected and tied to that person for the rest of your life and your child's life. Not even, until they're 18. Like, no, your parents forever.
I mean, I'm sure the parents that are actually in those situations probably can speak to it better than we can because we're not in that situation. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you get used to it, and I'm sure
Oh,
you don't really
yeah.
ever interact with the other person. I'm sure there's a schedule, but like as far as
But
I clearly
you have to have communication always with that person.
sure.
Yes.
I'm just saying sure because it's probably not as like you're not as involved in each other's lives as I think we think you are.
I'm not
But
saying that. I'm saying you have to have communication.
some sort of communication.
Yes, because especially if you
At
co-parent,
least I think
I'm saying
so.
if both parents like want to be involved in the child's life, then yes, there's always communication of like, always. You're always in a.
I mean, I'm just assuming because like we haven't experienced that, so I don't
Yeah,
100%
that's true.
know,
We can't speak to it fully, but I would assume that that's how it
right,
goes.
of course.
And so on our 2-year anniversary, I remember thinking, okay, I am not fully ready yet. So I remember thinking, okay, I'll just wait until January, the new year. So 2022. I remember that. And I think like 2022, I think every single month I was like asking you, like, okay, are we going to try this month? Like, what's going on? Because you were kind of just like, no, I'm not ready. No, I'm not ready yet. And in my brain, I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep asking you every single month because I need to know if for like my cycle and stuff, like I need to know. And because when I always knew this, when I was going to try to have a baby, I wasn't just going to, not use protection anymore, and just see what happens. Like, no, I would want to track my ovulation, like do it correctly so I can get pregnant as fast as possible. Like that was just what was going to happen. So when every single month I needed to know, okay, are we doing this or are we not doing this? Mm-hmm. And you were giving me like no answers. You were just kind of very like, no, not yet. And this is the reason why we went to therapy in the first place, people. Because it began to a point to where it was too much. It was too much for me and it was too much for you.
Yeah, I mean, it just ultimately it prompted a difficult conversation where like, hey, there's something here that we need to look at and have a third party discuss with us. Because there was something that I was facing, whether it was commitment issues or something else. Like, I don't really know exactly what it was, but there was something inside of me that was saying, oh, you're not either good enough, or like, since I've always been the youngest in my family, there's that like, you're not ready, you're too young, like you still have things that you need to do first. Just all surrounding the fact that I wasn't ready. There was just, that was basically my underlining thoughts behind it, and it was scaring me. And then have you every single month bringing it up over and over again, was just making me more scared and more anxious about it, and just like I didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah, so that's what was going on in Orson's brain. In my brain, you were just giving me nothing. I was just like, "Okay, what is going on?" Because you're not giving me a time. I was like, okay. I remember in the winter being like, okay, the spring, the summer, and you were never giving me like, okay, let's do it then. Just give me a little bit more time. Mm-hmm. And I just couldn't handle that. I was just like, I can't do this. I don't know when you're going to be ready. I feel like, how can this be a compromise? Because obviously I'm not going to force Orson to be ready, if that makes sense. Like, I was never going to be the one to not take my birth control that month or do something shady. Like, no, definitely not. And I just didn't know how there was a compromise at all, because how can you compromise a child? You know what I mean? So I just felt like I was the one just being dragged along for what you were ultimately deciding for me, it felt like.
Yeah, you felt like I was making the decision for you?
Yes.
You didn't like that?
Because I couldn't change your mind on that. Mm-hmm. And so that was that the first time we went to therapy?
That's what
during that time? I think it was.
I know I'd always wanted to go to therapy with you, but like that's what really, not because we needed it necessarily, but after we had basically it was one conversation that was just a difficult one in particular, and it was after that when we decided, okay, hey, let's explore that and actually get serious about going to therapy, because I didn't like dragging you along.
Yeah.
I didn't. In my head, I'm thinking, because I've always been super ambitious and a big dreamer and stuff like that, and in my head, I'm like, is that gonna affect all of that? Is that gonna go away after having a kid? Because am I just gonna have to go back to my old dead end job and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
Flash forward a few years, I ended up going back to that job with a baby. Anyways, that'll be a story for another time.
Yes.
But it was just,
which is understandable. But the thing is back then, I can't believe that was only 2 years ago.
Was it only 2 years ago?
Because, yeah, it's 2024. Well, I guess it was more of the beginning of 2022, so 2.5 years.
Well, because the difficult conversation that I'm mentioning was more almost during the beginning of the summer of 2022.
Yeah, so it's been over 2 years.
Then we started going to therapy around this time of that year.
Oh, I think you're right.
I think it was like September or something was when we started.
Maybe.
With our first therapist.
Yes. And it's just funny because if this were to happen today, you would be telling me all of these things. But back then, you were giving me nothing.
As far as like what my true feelings are?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know how to fully communicate yet.
Yeah. It's just so funny how much you can like... Because patting ourselves on the back yet again, but we're really good at communicating. We really are.
Yeah, I'm sure we still have a lot to work on, but I mean, we've done pretty well. We've learned a lot from our sessions and stuff that we've been able to implement.
2.5 years of going to therapy, like, yes.
You're bound to learn something, right?
Yeah. And so we hadn't done that 2.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it was just all confusing because you weren't telling me any of these things. Mm-hmm. And if this, like I said, if this were to happen today and you were to tell me, oh, my dreams, these are my fears, I would maybe understand more. I probably wouldn't have liked it, and honestly still would have been upset still, because that's just not what we had agreed to. Mm-hmm. But back then you were giving me nothing, so I was like more upset. Which
made it a lot more difficult, because if you don't know how to communicate your truth, your selfish desires, mm-hmm. it's gonna cause resentment in each other, because it's like you're not giving your partner the what they deserve as far as the knowledge that they're looking for, because like a lot of issues would be resolved if you just simply share what your selfish desires are in that situation, and then you now have an opportunity. All your cards are on the table, and you have an opportunity to be like, hey, where are you at? Where am I at? And then where's the compromise? Yeah. And there's still like different techniques and stuff that you can use to make sure you're communicating effectively and coming to that good compromise. But I just think at the core of it, we really do not know how to lay our cards out on the table like that, and even think about discussing what the compromise would be. Yeah. And I'm trying to think, okay, so when we were finally like, okay, I'm not happy, you're not happy. You weren't happy because you felt like I was nagging you every single month, which I 100% was. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't happy because in my brain, I just needed something. I just needed a timeline. Because for me, I'm not career-based like you are. Not career focused. Yeah. Like I have a job, a good job, and I'm even with Scarlett, I work part-time still at that job because I like getting out of the house. It's I like it. It's not super stressful. I just go in and do my work and get some adult communication, so I enjoy it. So that's why I'm still there. But I know I'm not going to be there the rest of my life. I know that eventually I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom, especially with multiple kids, and that's what I want. I think. I keep going back and forth on that, by the way, of like, oh, do I work? Because right now I work 3 days a week, and I think that's too much. So
2 days a week would be my...
So you keep going back and forth on like, do I want to be a stay-at-home mom all the time, or do I want a little bit of a thing for me?
Right. But I know that I'm not going to have a full-on career.
I mean, you might. I mean, things can always change, right? Your priorities can change. Your desires will change.
In my head 2.5 years ago, I was like, when my life hasn't even started yet. I'm just working. Like, you're trying to build something where I wasn't. I was just staying and working, and I wasn't doing anything, it felt like.
You felt like you had a lack of direction.
Yeah.
You were just kind of coasting.
I was, because I was just waiting to have a baby.
Yeah, and in your life, a baby was going to be that thing that brought that direction to your life. And I think my perspective, too, and I think I talked about this when we first started going to therapy, about how I didn't like that idea of like you needing a kid to get direction in your life.
No, I agree with that.
It was like
that. I'm just saying how I felt 2.5 years ago.
No, for sure. And this is where I was at that during that time, and I think I expressed this a little bit, but it made me a little bit worried that you need a kid to find that direction, because of how big of a commitment having a child is. I was like, I don't want to just have a child just so you can feel a sense of direction. Like, that just seems a little bit reckless.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking. That was one of the things that I was thinking. I mean, I think ultimately the cloud that was around me at the time was really more so my own insecurities about being a dad and committing to what this relationship was going to grow into and what it has grown into and what it will in the future. And so that was the majority of it, but that was the part of you needing a child to find direction was one of those little things for me.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. But still, back then, that's just how I felt. So that's why we went to therapy, because I felt like I was doing nothing and my life was on hold until Orson was ready to have kids with me. Mm-hmm. So we went to therapy and we kind of told him what was going on. Mm-hmm. And we're not with this therapist anymore, by the way. So we're with somebody else. But our first therapist, do you remember what he even told us? I don't even remember.
His sessions were kind of like a classroom in a sense. It wasn't like you were sitting in a classroom. It was obviously a small office space, but he had a whiteboard and he would teach us these different lessons and techniques of how to speak to each other. Yeah. And it was never like, when I think of therapy, you go in and you talk through your feelings kind of thing. Yes. And you have a conversation more so. You're not like listening to someone teach you something. Yeah. Sometimes I can see how that's helpful. Right. But every session with that guy, it was, oh, we're going to go to school.
Basically, yeah. He just had like a list of things of, oh, they're newlyweds? Okay, I'm going to give him these tips. That's what it was. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, clearly he got through to us because we did grow with him.
It's what we needed at the time.
Yeah. And we're being kind of vague, and I don't want to be, so I'm trying to explain more.
As far as what? Like what happened in the therapy?
How that experience went. So
you didn't really like him very much because he was very much... He liked me a lot. Gosh.
Okay, this is another thing that I have to bring up. So we've only seen 2 therapists in our lives. So it's kind of like, oh, every therapist loves Orson because it's only been 2. Yeah. But it's kind of like above and beyond.
Especially with the first guy more so was.
Oh, yeah. So therapy or therapists, I don't think are like, you're right, you're wrong. I think they just tell you how to navigate and communicate with each other, because of course, like, a therapist isn't going to say, Lindsay, you're right, because then that other person is not going to get anything out of that. They're just going to be like, that therapist sucks.
They're not there to validate your feelings. They're there to help you navigate the situation.
Well, they are. They're there to navigate both people's feelings, though. They're not going to just shut you down. Yeah. So, but the thing is when we go to therapy, I'm more like, especially in the beginning, more nervous energy, and Orson is very talkative and he explained things really well, which is funny because you weren't communicating those things to me.
Because I was scared too.
Really?
And I didn't know how to communicate them to you.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason why I pushed.
Probably because I was so hostile.
Yeah.
I was just like, just give me a baby already, which is so annoying, but that's just what it was.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's what we needed. Like, I would never go back and change it because it's brought us to where we're at today.
Yeah. So, but as I was saying, so pretty much every therapist that we've been to is obsessed with Orson. They're obsessed.
Our therapist now is not like that.
Yes, he is. He's not as intense as the first guy was obsessed with you, but he very much is like, wow, Orson, you are wise beyond your years.
No, he has never said that. He's just like, oh, Orson will probably understand this. Or he'll be like, oh, no, he knows. Like our last session, for example, he was like, oh, ask Orson, what should I do to help me in this situation? And he was kind of putting me on the spot, like I should know techniques and different things.
Oh, yeah, he did do that.
Not change your mindset, but help get you out of a spiral, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, Orson knows. And
like, they just love you.
And
I think it's because you're very not... Yes, you're willing to learn, of course, but I think they can tell that you're really listening and are really going to use the tools that they give you. Coachable, yes. And so they're obsessed with him.
Well, and like
especially the first guy, low key, as I'm thinking back, like rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, why? Like, he hates me and he loves you. Like, this is annoying.
That would be really annoying. And I think part of
he
that
was just like, oh my gosh, like you would say something, he'd just be like, wow, that was so profound, and dang, like you should be a therapist yourself. Like he
was like, I don't.
He made it seem like
to people, but I think you would be really good at this, is what he said.
I was just like, has he never talked to anybody? Like, he made it seem like you're the first person in his 30 years of therapy or of being a therapist that no one's ever been like you. Like, that's how he seemed.
It was dramatic, and I was like, all right, dude, stop like tooting my horn. But like, we're here to like build our relationship.
Did you think that?
Well, I mean, sometimes, yeah. I was like, come on, like I want this to be an equal thing. I don't want it to be, because that's been a common theme in our relationship. As far as like you feeling like you're not enough.
It's true.
And
because everyone's obsessed with Orson. Okay, maybe that doesn't come across on this podcast, but in person, who knows us personally, like you guys know, it's kind of like, if you know, you know, everyone loves Orson. Like,
everyone loves you too. Like, that's like, don't discount yourself either. But like, all I'm trying to say is
they put you on a pedestal,
especially at the beginning. That it was like that.
Yeah.
Because like, for example, at our wedding reception,
everyone
got up and was just talking about the speeches at the luncheon. Everyone talked about, oh, Linzie or Orson, we're so grateful that Linzie found you. We were unsure if Linzie was going to be able to find anybody that could handle her. It was just
Did they say that?
It was just like dumb things like that. I mean, I know it meant well, but there was just that underlining theme that, like,
I don't think there was one person, Orson, at our wedding that came up and said, Orson's so lucky to have Linzie.
Which is sad. Like,
it's really sad.
Like, that is not okay.
I know.
Like,
it makes me sad.
It makes me sad.
What the heck was that?
That was just Stella.
Oh my gosh.
Probably laying up against the door.
Okay. Make sure no one's in our house. Okay, good.
It was just that underlining theme was that's always up until that point, really, is kind of when we tried to really kind of switch that around more. Yeah. But to go into a therapy session and still have it be leaning more towards me,
that dynamic, yeah,
it was unhealthy. It wasn't really super helpful.
Right.
You weren't feeling like your feelings were being heard.
There were some things with the first therapist that he made me feel good and validated, but yeah, it was just many, many times where he was just so obsessed with you, or we were over, or I was over it, and I think you were catching on to like, okay, he's very one-sided here. So that's why we changed therapists.
So it got to the point where he was like, I don't know what I'm going to teach you guys.
Yeah.
It's like, you guys have gone through my entire curriculum, and you're doing great. And that was basically the end of it.
And was it even a year?
It was like 6 months.
Are you serious?
Maybe. I think we're done. I think we went like September to February.
No. Wait, when did I get pregnant? 2023. Yeah, you're right. Like we weren't pregnant yet. Or not even close.
No.
I don't even think we were trying yet.
No, we were trying.
No, we started we started trying to get pregnant. Spoiler again. Like we're flip-flopping here, but we started to get pregnant finally.
So we went to therapy for 6 months,
and then it was October of 2023.
So it was a year after we first saw that initial therapist.
Yes, but we weren't seeing him anymore because we had already
gone through his curriculum.
And obviously we're in a better place to where we were able to.
I know we're not like saying names or anything like that, but
of course
it's like he's a great therapist. I'm sure he's done magic for lots of different people.
I mean,
but like with therapy, that's just kind of a thing. You have to find who works well with your dynamic, and not everybody is going to be your vibe, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And he just wasn't our vibe for the long haul.
Yeah. I'm really glad we found our second therapist. So, should we talk about, okay, let's just kind of wrap up the first therapist and how we got together, and then we can start talking about our second therapist if we want, and like why he's better for us.
Well, I thought we were trying to talk more about the baby path, not necessarily just the therapy side of it.
That's true.
So I mean, the therapist will come in, I'm sure, be a part of that conversation.
Yeah.
But like as far as the timeline of it, let's try to continue with that. So it's like we stop seeing the therapist, and then about another 8 months goes by, we go to New York, and we start trying to start having a baby then.
Yes. So basically what it came down to is we weren't just hearing each other out, clearly, because none of us were really speaking our real thought, our true feelings with surrounding kids. Sorry to interrupt, but I was just thinking, like, there's a lot of other things going on too, like during all this, because like that last year going in, like, so we stopped seeing that therapist in February. Was that the same year that I lost what I thought was my dream job? No.
I thought, because
when we went to New York, you were very much still in that job.
That's true. And it was that
next month where that...
It was that next couple months is when that fell apart.
Yeah.
So we were already seeing we weren't seeing our current therapist at that point. And
no, our current therapist was
a year after
I was
New
still
York.
I was very pregnant.
It was a year after New York.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I was trying to get the timeline correct in my mind.
Yeah.
So I'm following it now.
Yeah. So let's see.
We stopped seeing the therapist. 8 months or so go by, and we're at New York now, and we're deciding, okay, let's start trying to have.
So obviously I was always ready to have a baby. And Orson finally gave me, I think that's what the therapist told us is, okay, you of course don't have to be ready right now, but I think it would be really helpful for Lindsay to give her more of a time. So so that's what we kind of were doing.
Yeah, like on our 3-year anniversary.
So Orson was like, okay, our 3-year anniversary, we can start trying to have a baby. So it took a year after we had initially had said,
let's start working through this, figuring out.
Right. So that was a great experience for us. We started trying in October, and we got pregnant in April of 2023. So it took us 6 months, which felt like such a long time, especially because in my head, I felt a year behind what I had wanted. Yep. So it was hard, but of course there are way longer trying to conceive timeline. So I don't even like saying that out loud of, oh, it was so hard. It was hard because 6 months is like nothing compared to years and years of trying to conceive.
Right. I think what made it a little bit harder too is you kind of resented me because you felt a year behind. You felt angry at me for making us wait.
That is also true.
And that was something that we had to talk about in therapy as well.
Really?
I think we talked about that kind of when we first started seeing this new guy.
Yeah.
Anyways,
that's true. Very
I think
true.
that's one reason why it was a little bit harder for you, because you were just mad at me because
I think you're right. Because every month that it was a negative, I was like, if only we had started trying a year ago.
Yeah, so you're mad at me every single month, which...
That's so sad. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Again, I would never go back and change any of it. Like, I'm so grateful for all of those experiences.
And you know what's sad and also funny? I'm trying to like also try and give advice if anybody's in the situation as well, but I don't really know, because when you were like, okay, let's start trying now on our 3-year anniversary, you still weren't stoked about it.
Yeah, I was definitely still like, man, this is crazy. Like, having a kid is a huge commitment, and in the back of my head I'm still thinking, I am super ambitious. I have all these big dreams and goals that I want to accomplish. Is having a kid going to disrupt all of that? And there's probably some people that are thinking, yeah, that's definitely going to happen.
I'm trying to think of what advice you received from other people you were friends with and other dads. Were they telling you all of this? Like, what made you so scared? Because when we started trying to conceive and I would get a negative pregnancy test, I would be very sad about it. And I feel like you really couldn't care less.
No, it wasn't that I couldn't care less.
Of course, you didn't like seeing me sad. That made you sad, of course. But like when I was really excited the next morning to take a pregnancy test to see what,
more of like, oh man, is it going to be
positive? Like you were not excited as much as I was.
I think you're right. Like, I don't think I was I wasn't as excited as you were.
And I'm just asking, like, why did someone give you like scary advice, or was it just in your head?
I think it was, no one gave me scary advice. The people that were around me were people that I admired and had families and had great careers.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't getting necessarily bad advice. It was just, I think it was really more so my own insecurities and fears regarding me being too young or being afraid to really commit for the long haul or whatever those insecurities were.
Yeah. And I just think you didn't want our life to change, because it was amazing.
Yeah,
we were on cloud 9 always, and we had recognized that. We knew our life is really good.
Yeah, you kept saying, oh, I wonder when it's gonna go downhill.
I know, because it just kept going up, 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 up.
And I was like, never, don't say that. I can still, we can be the couple that it just keeps going up and it never goes down. Like, that's possible,
but that's not life. Yeah, I mean, everyone has hard times.
We'll go into the down part of it
in another episode. Yes,
I mean, that's a big part of this whole journey as well.
Yeah.
So
yes, and so I felt like a little bit I was going through this trying to conceive journey for us alone, in a sense, because I felt like I was the only one that was excited. But I just think that you just didn't want our life to change, which
for that, I'm sorry.
It's the unknown.
Yeah, and for that, I'm sorry that you felt that way, because I mean that's not okay. And
I know, but it's
I know I'm definitely going to be a lot more excited for every other kid hereafter.
Oh, yeah, because now you know what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those fears that I had, I realized they were just not really relevant, and they're kind of dumb. And we'll get into that a little bit later as we keep going down the timeline, but...
Yeah. So, yes, so when we finally did get pregnant in April, I was so shocked. I was so excited. Mm-hmm. And... How did you feel when I got a positive pregnancy test? I was over the moon. I was so excited.
I don't know. I don't really know how to react, which is really sad. And I'm sorry. It's just like I wanted to be excited. I really did. There was still something inside of me though that was just like, you're not good enough. You're not old enough. You're this, you're that. And so I was like kind of finding my own demons in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, I didn't give the genuine reaction that I wanted to. I use this language in the past, but I think I would refer to it now as I was in the gap about our lives and just everything else. Because I think during that time I was looking ahead of me for something outside of me to bring the happiness, the joy, the success that I was wanting. And that those 6 months when we were started trying, I had also just lost the job that had created that stability income that I was working so hard to get to before we started trying to have kid. So it was like everything was starting to fall apart at the same time as we were trying to.
But we were still keeping afloat. Like, you had other clients. We
had other clients, but we had to bring in roommates to help pay the mortgage. Like, we had to get rid of the car. We had to borrow money just to get out of it. Like, there was
it's so funny how you forget.
There was a lot of things that, really, it was just slowly going downhill.
Mm-hmm.
It was
That's true.
And so we were trying to be. I was trying to be excited about being able to have this kid. And again, we'll go into more of those financial difficulties and stuff in a different episode. But it was like fighting all of that stuff as well as wanting to be excited for a kid. But it was, I think for me, that was really hard, along with finding my own demons of not being good enough.
Yeah. Which, of course, looking back, like, it makes me sad that I didn't have a partner who was just as excited as I was, because I'm sure, maybe not, I'm not sure, but I feel like every other couple who they both decide to have kids, they're both in it together, really excited, really disappointed when they see a negative pregnancy test, and you just kind of were like,
it was very
neutral
level, whether it's positive, negative.
It was just in the middle, like just a neutral, like, okay.
I was definitely, I think when we're going to find out the gender, I can think of the video, and I can see the video inside my head when we were thinking about that, because my office and desk was out in the loft, and we had roommates and stuff at that point. And I remember thinking, like, oh man, because I had just gotten our finances and everything to the point to where we could take care of a family. And then now everything was falling apart. I remember thinking, like, that was...
it wasn't falling apart yet.
But that was consuming my head more so. Cause
it just wasn't as good as it once was.
I didn't have that stable income. And there was something missing in the career side of it. That was frustrating me. And I was like, I don't want to I'm scared to bring a child into this world if I don't have this financial stuff figured out.
So when you were saying, like, the gender reveal, like, is that when you got excited, or you still weren't yet?
Like, when we were looking on the computer and we found out the gender together.
Yeah.
That's what was going through my head, is like.
So you weren't excited. You were still nervous.
There was still, like, I think the nervous energy was consuming more. It consumed more of my. The way that I was feeling about the situation. I think there was still some excitement in there. Yeah. But the nervous energy, the scared energy was consuming more of it.
Yeah, because I remember you being excited when you were, like, hearing the heartbeat and coming to my appointments with me, and the gender reveal was fun. You were excited to have it. Were you excited that when we found out she was a girl? Because I was over the moon.
I know I always said I wanted a boy first, but I was going to be happy either way.
Yeah. So it wasn't, I don't want to make it seem like Orson was depressed this whole time. Like, oh, I'm not good enough. Like, no, it was just very neutral. Like, I wasn't getting super excitement, but I wasn't getting depression either. So it was just very mid. And so the rest of the pregnancy was good. I had her, so I got pregnant in April, and I had her in January.
Real quick, I do it like as far as just to take one step back.
Yeah.
Me being neutral, I was aware of that, and I knew I didn't want to be neutral. I wanted to be more on the excitement side.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to take steps to be able to get myself to where I would be more excited. And at the time, what I thought those steps needed to be was I needed to get the financial stuff back in order. And now there's some other lessons and stuff that I've learned since going through all the hard things that would have changed the way that I view it now. But like, I was aware of the neutrality of my emotions, and I didn't like it. And so I was actually trying to change it. I wasn't just neutral and I didn't care.
Yeah. I mean, also, to be fair, Orson is just also that way in kind of life. Like, you're very, not monotone is the wrong word, but you are just very chill. You're just a chill person. So
Yeah, I mean,
that wasn't out of the blue or out of the ordinary that you weren't super excited, because I don't even know. It's very new that you have started to like show your emotions more and getting excited. Like last week you got so excited and couldn't stop talking about how you're going to eat pie, you know? So like, it's very recent where you are starting to show your emotions, which is amazing. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I fell in love with you being very chill and neutral vibes, but it's been fun to like see your emotions come out more. But anyway, so the rest of the pregnancy was good, and we had her in January. So I was 24, and then Orson was about to turn 25 the next month in February. So we were young, but not too young. And
I think that's so. I mean, I never planned on getting married until I was 25. That's what I always told myself. Like, I wasn't planning on getting married until that age, but I also said I was never going to stop it from happening, and so I think that.
But I wouldn't even consider mid-20s to be like super young, because there's so like having kids in your early 20s and sometimes teens even is very common, at least around us.
True.
So we were old farts compared to all of the other people in our lives. Like, my mom was like, when are you gonna have kids already? You're so old. But she had me when she was very young as well. But after we had her, I could see your emotions come out. You were very happy, very excited, because she was just so cute and so amazing. Like, I would just pass by you holding her, and you were like crying, and I was like, what's wrong? And you were like, nothing's wrong, she's just looking at me. And it was just very cute to see you be a dad. And we love her the most, our Scarlet baby princess angel queen.
So to kind of go along with what you were saying about how I was just crying, like when she was just looking at me, and I think a big part of that too is come from the fact that I've learned a lot of different lessons from different books and stuff that I've read since she has been born. And one of those lessons or techniques that I've been implementing that has really helped me just enjoy a lot of it more, and kind of taken away a lot of those fears that I've had in the past about being able to provide a good home for her and stuff like that, is a very simple exercise. And I think it's a beautiful one if anyone else wants to try it. It's, you just place yourself 20 years into the future, and you think to yourself, how would that version of myself react right now in this moment? And for me, a lot of the time, it's just he would be a lot more present, appreciative, observant of what's happening around him in that current moment, and just be fully present in that.
Yeah.
And when I place myself in that mindset, because 20 years in the future, Scarlett will probably be moved out.
Yeah.
Experiencing life on her own, an adult, will have all their kids that'll be teenagers, probably getting ready to move out themselves. And life will look a lot different. We'll have all the material success and stuff like that, and everything will have happened the way we wanted it to. And like, that version of myself is just like, if he could come back and tell me to do anything, it would just be to be more present.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great exercise for anyone that's just wanting to soak in all these moments that you're in right now. And for me, like, it brings me to tears a lot when I do that.
Yeah. That's super good advice, is just to, be present with her, because she's going to be 1 in just a few short months, and then we won't have a baby anymore. We'll technically have a toddler. Like, that's just crazy. But needless to say, I am honestly, like, it's just going to be such a different experience trying to conceive baby number 2.
It's going to be a way different experience.
Yeah, and I'm excited about it because
I'm excited too.
We'll both be...
And I can like, it feels good to genuinely say, like, yeah, I feel excited to start trying to have baby number 2. I mean, I know we're going to want to go to Disneyland before we do all that.
Oh, yeah. Like, we're not going to try for baby number 2 just yet, but I just know that when it does happen, it's going to be super fun and super exciting for both of us, which is awesome. Because I think also, too, Orson, is you know what to expect, you know, because at first maybe you weren't super excited because it was just so unknown and scary. So I think that because now you know the awesome things and feelings and love that are going to come, it's more easier to enjoy. Because obviously there was nervous energy on my end. I had never been pregnant before. I didn't know what everything was going to be like, but now I know what's to come. Like, of course, the sleepless nights, we just barely gotten over that. But the love is just it's just gonna double. We're gonna have 2 kids, you know, and then more.
It'll get harder in a sense,
right? It definitely will, but it's just always super exciting.
And I think, especially one thing that's changed for me too is a lot of those fears and stuff that I had when we first started trying to have kids, and me thinking I was good enough. Am I going to lose some of my motivation or drive
or like identity? Even
all of those things were, like, even thinking, I want to get our finances into a good place to where we can have kids. Like, after going through all this experience the last couple of years that we've had of trying to have a kid, financial issues, and all those types of things, it's really made me realize that those fears they might have been relevant for me then, but looking back on it, like, if I could go back and tell myself anything, I'd be like, dude, just relax.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, life can throw a curveball and everything can fall apart in a moment's notice, but that's okay. If it does fall apart, that's okay. If it doesn't fall apart, that's great. But don't use that as an excuse to say, no, I don't want to have a kid, because having a child is one of the most beautiful things in the world, and that's not going to be for everybody, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But if you are somebody that wants to have a child, like, I think it's important to do those things that you feel like you need to get done before having a kid, because those thoughts are there for a reason. You need to act on those. But if you're constantly putting yourself off, putting it off, kind of like how I was, a lot of those fears may be not relevant. They may just be holding you back from experiencing the joy that you're actually wanting in your life.
Yeah.
And because for me, like, having a child, my drive, my discipline, and everything else just doubled. Like, when I got married, it did that, and then now having a child, it did that even more, and I'm sure having another kid will do that even more.
Yeah.
But it's just gotten more apparent that I really want to show my kids how to live, and not tell them, but showing them doesn't always, it includes a lot more than just having a good job that you love. It's being able to look at life from the perspective of abundance and love rather than a fear base. And to your point about me being excited about pie, like, that to me is emulating the abundance that we all are as children of God. Our natural states are abundance and love and gratitude. It's just we're out of touch and out of practice with it because we don't constantly look at it, because this world is full of so much negativity. But when we, like, if I go back and tell myself anything, I'm just like, dude, just focus on just living your life with love and just trying to be your best every single day. Don't worry, like, those fears and stuff, it's okay to have those, but don't let that stop you from doing something you know you want to do, which is have a family. Yeah,
that is very true, because it would also be another thing if you were like, I don't want kids at all, I don't want to stop the grind. But no, you always knew that that's what you wanted, and you had your anxieties about starting it up. But I'm very glad that it went how it went because we were able to go on a couple more trips before she was born. We went to New York. We went on a cruise with our friends, which was super fun. So we got to do a little bit more in that extra year that we had that we didn't know we would, from 2 years of marriage to 3.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a bonus, and we were a little bit older, a little bit wiser, if you will, with therapy under our belt. So even though it does make me sad to say, because from time to time I am like, well, I still would have wanted to have a baby a year ago, you know, but I am glad how everything has turned out, because we do get compliments from friends and family saying how good of parents we are. And I come back with, well, maybe just because we're a little bit older than people around us who are 20, you know, even though 20 to 24, 25, it doesn't seem like a lot of you, but it really is. Like from early 20s to mid 20s, like we've lived a little bit more life. We've, like I said, have gone to therapy for a couple years. So I do think it was for the best for us, for me and you. Because I think I said this, I don't even remember what episode, but I think it was the first episode, that if we had a honeymoon baby, that would have not been good for us in the slightest. Would we be married today? Who knows?
I mean, yeah, you never really know.
I know.
I mean, as we try to wrap this up, I do want to just point out one thing. That's like, this has been our experience and our journey, and it was exactly what we needed. And I would never go back and change the fears that I had or the lessons we learned. Like, yeah, me either. It's brought us to where we're at today, and I'm so grateful for where we're at and where we're going. And anyone else that is a parent, even if you're a young parent, like, your journey is exactly what you need, and you're on the right path. I feel like that's another thing that we get so caught up in is, are we on the right path? Are we doing what we need to be? Because we all have these ambitions of this dream that we have for our life. Whether you're super ambitious or not, I think we all have some sort of desire to have a good life. Yeah. And we get so caught up of, are we on the right path to that? And I think it's important, and I believe we are all on that right path. It's just sometimes we think too much about it, and we get lost in the details of, are we doing the things to stay on the path instead of just being on the path? Yep. And I just don't want anyone else to get caught up in, oh my gosh, I'm having a kid when I'm really young, like that's going to ruin my life. Like, no, it's not. It's going to be the best thing for your life. Yeah. Like, start looking at it from that point of view.
Best of it.
Because if you can look at it from that point of view, you're going to get more of the best things to come. Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about life, is that we have the choice to look at it from, this is the best thing or this is the worst thing. And I just hope if there's anyone listening to this that is thinking that, like, oh my gosh, should I have a kid? I'm really young, or maybe in a similar situation that we were in, or maybe they're really young and having a kid and they're doubting themselves. Like, it's okay. Like, just you're doing great. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and just put a smile on your face. Sometimes it might be hard. Some days it might be harder than others.
Fake it till you make it, if you will.
I don't say fake it. I don't like to say you fake it till you make it.
Okay.
I would just say, like, genuinely try to find the things that you're grateful for on those days that it's even the hardest. Yeah. And use that to put a smile on your face, even if it's like you're grateful to eat lunch that day. It can literally be the smallest things. Totally. But
thank you.
Anyways, for that. I don't want to go in circles because I know I tend to do that.
I know. It's okay.
Thank you. I'm trying to be better.
I love you so much.
Love you too.
And we thank you so much for listening to this episode. This is the episode of why we went to therapy, and mixed in with our trying to conceive journey, because it's all intertwined. And thank you for listening to this uncomfortable, weird stage in our life. We just wanted to be open about it, because not every marriage, especially when you're trying to have a baby, is picture perfect, because there's always going to be, not always, but there's stuff behind the scenes that some people, you just never know about certain people. And that was that was our journey, and I'm happy to be honest about that. Thank you guys.
You guys are the best. Love you all.
See you next week.
See you, fam. Bye.
1, 2.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We do that together. Sorry.
1, 2, 3. Bye.
Bye.